Good morning. This is Stephen Candy. I'm Division President of Hyphen Solutions here in Dallas, Texas, actually today. I hope it's nice and sunny where everybody is today. I wanted to kick off the meeting today. First, we have Blaine Parrish and Allison Verdi with informXL. We're excited to have them today. Wanted to thank everybody for joining. Hyphen Solutions has been involved with informXL for quite some time. We've worked together through various existing accounts and partners for quite some time. But we really formalized our relationship a little over 6 months ago. Blaine, I forget the specific timing, but it's been quite a while. We've got just a ton of new modules and analyzers that the teams have been working on with BRIX. We're very excited to have them today, and I had asked Blaine and Allison really to go through some of the new features and new capabilities that'll help BRIX be more successful, help you be more successful with using BRIX. So again, excited to be here today. If there's any questions, feel free to either email, and I think we'll have some contact information in here, or there's a chat line here, so feel free to speak up via chat and ask questions. I think Blaine and Allison both enjoy real-time questions or making it as interactive as possible. So feel free to join or add a chat question there, and we'll make sure we get it addressed. With that, Blaine and Allison, are you guys ready to kick off?
Let's do this.
Do it. Everyone can see my screen fine?
I can, Allison.
Excellent.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks, Stephen. I'm Blaine Parrish with informXL. I'm the president of informXL, and on the call as well, we have Allison Verdi, who is a senior project manager with us, and Allison's managing the informXL for BRIX rollout. Allison, you want to go ahead and go to the next slide? I've got a couple of slides I'm going to go through, and then just kind of as an introduction to us as a company, and then Allison is going to take over and show you the latest analyzer today, which is the job cost analyzer. I know it was a couple of weeks ago, we did a similar webinar on the sales analyzer, so we're excited to get that out there, but today we're going to cover job cost. So first things first, what is informXL? informXL is an out-of-the-box business intelligence solution for home builders. So it's a product that will work right out of the box. It's a comprehensive reporting suite that allows you to work with your BRIX data all in real time. Primarily, we will be developing and deploying our tools through a Microsoft Excel front end. informXL is actually a suite of products, and we do have multiple products, but the first product that we're going to roll out is informXL Analyzer for BRIX, and that's an Excel-based tool that allows you to work with and report on all your BRIX data using a Microsoft Excel front end. It's very easy to use, and you'll see when Allison jumps in, it's quite intuitive and quite powerful. Okay, Allison, you want to go to the next slide? Okay, so a quick overview of who uses informXL. We work with well over 100 builders throughout the US and Canada. This is a list of a handful of those builders. And of course, we've got some logos that you might recognize. And it's not to say that informXL is a big builder solution. You don't have to be doing over 1,000 homes a year to use informXL. We have a broad spectrum of builders that do anywhere from 100 homes a year or even 50 homes a year, all the way up to 10,000 homes a year. So it's a tool that's widely used, and hopefully the BRIX user base will adopt it as well. All right, Allison, we go to the next slide. Okay, so BRIX early adopters, we're super excited to be working in conjunction with these three builders, Chesmar, Bright, and Four Corners, on this initial deployment of informXL for BRIX. So we're not developing the analyzers and informXL for BRIX kind of in a vacuum all on our own. We are very actively working with these builders on feedback and suggestions and tweaks as we deploy each one of the analyzers. And they've been very involved and provided some great feedback up to this point. So anyway, a big shout out to these guys, and hopefully we'll continue to get some great feedback, not just from them, but from others as well as we start to bring the broader BRIX user base online. All right, Allison. All right, so the list of analyzers, this is kind of the release schedule. what you're seeing here is a series of bullets that outlines the different analyzers. And if you're not familiar with what an Excel analyzer is, Allison will get into that in a minute. But this is a list of the 7 analyzers that we are launching with version 1 of informXL for BRIX. This first bullet that you're seeing there, that job cost, that's what we're going to be covering today. So that one has been delivered to our early adopters. We've got a sales summary that was also delivered, job details, purchase orders. So those are in the hands of our early BRIX builders. And then over the next, really, we'll say almost 30 to 45 days, we've got these other 3 analyzers: an accounts payable, general ledger, and then a plan budgets analyzer as well. So the final launch is expected for February of 2020, and I know this date has pushed out a couple of times over the last few months, and developing software in many respects is not a whole lot different than building homes, right? You have delays and challenges along the way that sometimes can push the launch or push the closing, so to speak. But we are super excited because we feel like we're inches away from having this ready for the general market. All right, so I think that's all that I had to cover. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Allison Verdi. Again, she's managing the product rollout for informXL for BRIX and working very closely with the early adopters. And so she's going to be the one on our team who's the most familiar with the tool. Allison, you want to go ahead and do your thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Blaine. And I just turned off my webcam to save some bandwidth there. So first off, if you attended the last webinar, you were introduced to the sales summary analyzer. And today I'm super excited because we're going to introduce you to the informXL analyzers for BRIX that are going to focus on job costing. And, Blaine said, hey, yeah, we're going to do the job costing analyzer, under promise, over deliver. We actually have 2 analyzers we're going over today. We're going to do both purchase orders and job costing, appropriately named. So what you're looking at is my SharePoint site. And so you can absolutely load informXL onto SharePoint. If you guys are using SharePoint at your company, you can also just put the informXL analyzers into a file. So I'm going to start, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open up the purchase orders analyzer directly from my SharePoint site. And this analyzer was designed to provide your team with a simple, straightforward visibility into your purchase orders, looking at your purchase orders by vendor, by job, by cost, all the way down to the item level. So you can see I just opened up an Excel file, and probably one of the first things you're going to notice is this informXL ribbon on Excel. So don't worry, your Excel ribbons and command functions are all still here, but we've also added on an informXL ribbon. And this informXL ribbon is what you're going to use to define the data that you want to be able to pull out of your BRIX system, and then also the functions that you're going to use to actually go and get that data. So for anybody that is not familiar with informXL, what we do is we take the data out of your system and simply pull it directly out of your live production database, and then we're going to put it into Excel in a nice, simple format. Okay, so the first thing you may notice is your parameters, right? And this is how you're going to define what you're pulling in. So you have like your clients, your companies, divisions, regions, and areas, part of your basic BRIX setup. And what's nice about the analyzers, or about the parameters, is that they are all cascading. So when I pick a client, I'm only going to see the companies associated with that client. When I pick a company, I'll only see the divisions that are associated with that particular company, right? So you'll see this throughout informXL. So you can go regions, areas, projects. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to pick a specific project to be able to run this for. There we go. So I can run it for a specific job. I can run it for my vendors. Now, what's nice about the vendors, let's say you wanted to run informXL and see all of the POs that you've created for a specific vendor over a period of time. really simple to do, right? Really simple to be able to get that insight into your information. You can run it by specific plans. And then over here, we start getting into some of your costing area, right? So you can specify the costing categories that you want, your costing groups, right? So if I'm like, oh, I just want to be able to see my plumbing and then your cost codes, here are my cost codes that are associated with plumbing. So you can truly just run this as small or as big as you need to. Your date ranges, whenever there's a date range in informXL, we alter it based on the analyzer. Job costing analyzers, we're typically going to take it to about 2 years. Now, this is a BI tool. It's a reporting tool. But when you get into especially the purchasing data and the estimating data, I want you to think of it as just a tool, right? So if I'm working and all of a sudden I just need to see all of my open POs, I'm just going to check this box and all of a sudden I'm going to have all of my open POs listed out into a nicely formatted Excel spreadsheet and worksheet, and it's going to be real time, so it's very simple. I'm going to bring in all of my POs for this instance. Over here by PO type, right? Do you want to see all your POs? Do you just want to see your EPOs, your extra POs that came over from Build Pro Hyphen? Do you want to look at your regular POs? I'm going to go ahead and look at all. Now this next one, this PO number contains, is a parameter that I love, right? Because let's say that somebody suddenly calls you and all of a sudden they want to look at a specific PO. I'm just going to type in my PO number, and just as an example, I'm going to hit my get data button right over here. And you can see my little background query is running. And what it's going to do is it's going to just pull up that PO and all of the information that's associated with it, right? So maybe I'm not logged into BRIX at the moment, but I get a call and they're like, hey, PO number 252, what's happening, right? So I can open it up and now all of a sudden you can see I have one PO and 38 record counts, where one's a summary that shows all of the highlight, of that PO details or the PO itself. And then over here are all of the details that make up that PO. So we're going to go through some of these column headers in a minute, but I'm just going to scroll over to the far right to where the detail information is, right? So I included my details. And now when I'm looking at this, I can see not only that PO, but I see every single PO item associated, right? I can open up these columns right here and I'm going to get a lot more information, right? My quantity, my unit of measure, my cost, my divisors, right? It's all right here, right at your fingertips, just to quickly look up that one PO. And over here, some of the option details, we're going to bring in that as well, right? So if you just need a quick view into your information, use this PO number contains and go ahead and run your analyzer, right? Quick way to see it. Now, this next time I'm going to run it, I'm actually going to uncheck include details and I'm going to get data. And so what I'm going to do this time is I don't want to look at all of the detailed information. I don't want to look at all of the line items, but what I want to do is I want to look at my POs just at my PO level. And this is actually the include details checkbox and the open only checkbox. These came directly from our early adopter group. These were things that they wanted to be able to see, ways that they wanted to be able to run the analyzer. So really thankful for them. And I don't think they quite have this version yet, so you will be getting it very soon today if any of you are on the call. So a couple of things I want to talk about now that we're just looking at it at a PO level. Right here we have our PO number, and then over here you can see there's a Build Pro PO number. So your EPOs, when they came in from the field, I'm going to simply uncheck my blanks. Now you can see side by side your BRIX PO number along with the PO number that came over from Build Pro. Right, I'm going to go ahead and clear that as well. Now, underneath each one of these plus signs is additional information. Oops, let me go home. There we go. So you will have additional information underneath each one of these pieces of group data because not everybody is looking for the exact same information. So we do recommend that you ungroup these. We won't have time to go through all of the fields, but a few fields I want to go ahead and highlight. Right here's your project information, right? Your project information from right here. If I ungroup this, you're also going to be able to see, you know, your client, company, division, area information, which is great to have if you're working on any pivot tables, doing aggregations, looking at costs across divisions. Over here is your job information, and I'm going to ungroup this. And I know a lot of builders go by address, not necessarily by job number, not by lot number. So this may be something that you want to ungroup, something you want to be visible. We want you to make this work for you. Do a file save as, because you can set it and forget it. Once you set it up exactly the way you want to be able to see it, I can simply ungroup this up from my data ribbon, and now it's going to be available. But I'm looking at my job information, and I do a lot of reporting. I do a lot of things based off of my block number. And I've noticed that my block number isn't part of my job information. Well, that's where the informXL for BRIX analyzers really shines, because over here to the far right in your informXL ribbon, you can see that there's a field chooser. And what we've done is we've brought in some of the key tables and when we have the fields listed in here. So if I'm like, oh, here's my job table, and now I can pull in my block number. So you're not limited to just the fields that you're seeing initially in the analyzer. So you do have that ability to go out and grab some of these additional fields as well. So I'll just grab my block number, and maybe I'll do my include risk for my job level as well. I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to come back here and I'm going to get data one more time. You can see my little background query is running. And so I'm going to actually add those two fields to my 700 rows of data, my 700 POs. When I scroll over to the right, you're going to be able to see here's my block for my job, and here's if I included any of my risk information. So you have so much flexibility in how you're looking at this data. So just kind of at a very high level, we're going to bring in your vendor information, your purchase order information, your payment information, so check number and check date. Talked about your project data. Over here's your job data. Now you have your block over at the far right. We're bringing in the superintendent name and then the superintendent approval date. Again, great suggestion by your early adopter group. Make sure you thank them later. This was another big field for them. Your plan information, and you'll always have like the elevation name. So however you want to be able to look at it. And then we start getting into some of your cost codes. So we're looking at your categories, your groups, and then your specific cost codes, the PO amount and the gross PO amount. I'm going to come back to that in a second. I'm going to ungroup these just so you can see bringing in all of your discounts, your taxes, right? So a lot of information. And I'm going to collapse this back down, and I'm going to hover over this gross amount. And when you're using informXL, if there's something special about a field or some additional logic, we're going to put a comment on the header. And here we're letting you know that we've actually added some conditional formatting to this particular analyzer, because we found that a lot of builders want to be alerted, right, if you have any variances, so extra POs that are over a certain dollar amount. So we went ahead and created a conditional formatting over $500. I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to filter by color. And now I can see my two extra purchase orders that are over $500. Here's my extra, and here's my variances associated with them. I'm going to go ahead and clear that. Right, you also have your payment amounts and your paid amounts. So there's quite a bit of data sitting inside. So I'm going to come back, and I'm actually going to include details this next time. So just like when we ran it for that single PO, this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to run it for all 700 purchase orders and bring that detail level in. Because when we get into the pivot tables, it's a lot more fun for me when we have a lot more data. So it's going to take just a second, because again, we're looking at 700 purchase orders that are going to pull in. All right, I know it's always exciting when it's responding. It's probably a little bit slower because we're on the webcam, so that, or on the webinar, for some reason that always slows things down just a little bit. Oh, there we go, not too bad. So you can see 700 purchase orders and 3,400 record counts, right? So that's including your summary level and your detailed level as well. So now what we've done is we've pulled in for each one of these all of that detail information that we were looking at with that very first the first time we looked at it. Now, one of the things that can happen, because this is at a detail level and that summary level, is let's say I was just filtering by my detail information. And I come over here and I'm just going to get rid of my blank rows, my summary rows. Now I have all my PO information. Maybe I'm looking at it by a specific item, but I don't have really any of my other data. I don't know what it belongs to. So what we've done, I'm going to clear my filters. This clear filters will clear all your filters, is we still have the data in here. If I click on column L29, and if I look up here, you can see that the data is still there. Again, we're just using basic Microsoft Excel functionality to put in some conditional formatting and make those cells white so that when you're looking at the analyzer, it is very, very distinctive where one PO ends and the next one begins. I can see that here's PO 243 and here's PO 244 pretty easily. But if you want to slice and dice and look at this data on this worksheet without having those disappear, you can just turn that conditional formatting off and you can see that your information is going to flow all the way down, which is pretty cool. All right, I'll take that back to hide. So what do you do with 3,400 rows of data? Well, you aggregate it. You use Microsoft Excel pivot tables. And so with all the analyzers, we have predefined pivot tables. So this first one is a PO by vendor, right? So I'm going to refresh it. I can use the exact same command button that I use in the main worksheet to go out to your BRIX database and get data, and I'm pulling it in. And this one's looking at it by vendor and project and PO number. So here's my vendor name, here's my project, and here's all of the PO numbers underneath. This next one's looking at a PO by project. I'm going to refresh my data again. It's a best practice. So by vendor and then by your job number, and here's all the vendors underneath. Now this is great because you can easily identify every vendor that worked on a specific job. But again, you're like, hey, Allison, I look at my jobs by the address, not by the job. That's not a problem. I'm going to slip job out and I'm going to stick my address in. So however you do business, it is so easy for you to adjust informXL to mirror the way that you need to look at your data. And then with all of the analyzers, we have a pivot create your own. So a sandbox for you to go in and play with, but it's also just really easy to make adjustments, right? So maybe I'm looking at this and I'm like, man, it would be great if I could just look at this by groups and by cost codes, right? That is so easy to do with basic Excel and with informXL because we have all that information in there. I'm just going to get rid of all of my rows and I'm just going to come in up here and I'm going to grab my group. I'm going to drop it down into my rows and then I'll come in and I'll grab my cost codes, right? So I'll grab my cost codes names. Last time I dragged it, I can just click it. And now I can see everyone by my group and then the cost codes underneath that group. But what's great about pivot tables is it answers kind of business questions. You're like, oh, I want to see the sum of my POs by group and by cost code, but can I also see like the sum by what is coming over as an extra PO versus what is a regular PO? Sure. I'm going to grab my extra field that we came in and I'm going to open this up. I'm just going to get rid of my blanks right here because that doesn't have anything in there. And now I can see this is the total PO amount for my regular POs, PO amount for my extra POs, and my grand total. So really cool to be able to take all this purchase order information and adjust it according to how you want to see it and how you need it. And the nice thing is with informXL, set it and forget it. You do a file save as with this setup, this change in your pivot table, and every time you open it up and get data and refresh your pivot table, it's going to be exactly the way you set it. So that is the purchase order analyzer. So let's go ahead, and now I'm going to open up the job cost analyzer. So I'm going to close that, do not save, and I'm going to open up job costing. I'm going to uncheck this, and I'm going to open up the job cost analyzer. So go ahead and open that up in Excel. So the job cost analyzer is going to provide you with your detailed job costs by vendor and by job and by cost codes, and it's going to also pull in your open PO information. So looking at the parameters in here, of course, these are both job costing analyzers, so they're going to be very similar, right? So you have your same clients, companies, divisions, areas, and projects. You can also run it by specific job and your cost code categories. Over here to the right are your date range, your from date and your to date. So these date ranges are actually looking at your accounting date inside BRIX. If you're looking at open POs, it's actually going to look at the open PO date. So those are the issue dates. So those are going to follow along with these. And then I want to touch on this job criteria. So you can run it for all jobs. You can run it for just closed jobs. So let's say that you wanted to see every job that had just closed that previous month, right? You're getting ready to close out your books. You want to see if you have any open POs. You want to see, comparison of your costs to your budgets. I can come in here and I'd be like, okay, I want everything that closed from December 1st all the way to December 31st and run it that way. I'm actually going to run it, I'm going to leave it set to all jobs because the first time I run it, I actually just want to run it for a single job just so you can get a really good feel for the type of data that we're pulling in. And so I'm going to go Country Lake Estates because that sounds like a lovely place to be. And I'm going to put in my job number. I can type it in. I can also go in and, of course, go through my search. So I'm going to go ahead and simply get data. And while this is running, don't forget that you do have your field chooser over here. So you can still grab company information, job information, project information. So if the data that you're looking for isn't in here, go over to your field chooser and pull that data into your analyzer. All right, so this has one lot, one job, 315 records. And you can see that we have two separate line types. We have a summary line type and a transaction line type. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to get rid of my transactions for now. And I'm just going to look at this at a summary level. Okay, so again, a lot of data underneath each one of these plus signs, but some of the key information we're bringing in, of course, your project, your job information, and again, you can come in and ungroup your address if you wanted to. I collapse that back down. Some of the key dates that you're going to find with BRIX, right? So when it was sold, your lot purchase date, start date, projected completion date, etc. Just key dates surrounding that particular job. Your superintendent information, who your buyer is, your sales price, so the overall selling price for that particular job. And then over here, we're looking at your cost code information again. So pretty similar to what we were seeing with your purchase orders analyzer, but really focusing on that job cost. So what's nice about this one is you're also going to be able to see what your original budget was. Anything additional, your purchase orders, your budget revision, and then your current budget is right here. So all of that budget and cost information. And then to the right is your job cost amount. So every single cost that's actually hit this job And then over here are your open POs. So I can see this single job still has $250 of open POs sitting out there. So that's something that we're going to go back and look at. And then right here is the estimated cost to completion. And we're using that exact same method that you're going to see in BRIX to calculate your estimated cost to complete. So we're using the accrual method that is identified at the cost code level to get that estimated cost to complete. Now over here, we have an over under budget. So for example, we're going to compare your budgets, your estimated cost to complete to your budget. And here we're going to compare it to your original budget. So I may just want to look at, for example, my direct costs, right? So I'm going to get rid of everything else. I'm just going to filter it out. I'm just going to focus on my direct costs and see how I did. So I filtered by my direct costs, and now I can look at my budget. So red is bad, green is good. So if I wanted to see where I busted my budget, I'm simply going to come in here. I'm going to filter by color, and I'm going to look at all my reds, and I'm going to see where did I bust my budget on my direct cost. If I'm a purchasing manager, if I'm an operations construction manager, I'm going to come in here and look at my closed jobs and be like, where are my budgets off? Is there something I need to adjust? Did something else happen, right? It's a great way to be able to come in and do that sort of analysis. I could also be like, where am I under budget? Good for me, right there, under budget. Okay, you can do it for either one of those. I'm going to go ahead and clear that, and I'm going to clear all my filters. So I'm going to bring that transaction level back in here. Just grab this clear filters up at the top. It's going to clear any filter you have on your analyzer because I can get filter happy sometimes, and I'm not sure where I filtered. So that's nice because I don't have to remember or try to look for the little funnel on there. So I'm going to come over here to my open PO amount, and I'm going to scroll over because I want to be able to see all my transaction details, right? So not only are you looking at it at the budget level, but now I can identify, oops, not quite that far, all of my transactions that came along with that. So there we go. So I'm going to look for my open PO amount, and I'm just going to scroll down a little bit, and I think it's down towards the bottom. Of course, I could filter, which probably would have been easier, but always fun for you guys to watch me scroll. All right, I'm going to just go over one. So here is an example. Here's an open PO. Here's my job cost amount. So I can see over here is my PO number, which is pulling into my transaction information. So right here, I can see a PO number 121.75, and I can see it's in here twice, right? So it's probably a $250 PO, $125 has been paid, and $125 is still an open purchase order. Over here, I have another open purchase order for 125. It's a brand new PO because there's already been 125 that's already been paid to Action Landscape. Okay, so I'm going to scroll back up to the top. So you can see your transaction sources. So where is that coming from? Is it an accrual? Is it a journal entry? Is it coming from accounts payable, your open PO, reverse accrual, right? All of those transactions that are associated with that cost code are going to pull into this analyzer, truly giving you just a ton of visibility sitting inside here. Next to that is your vendor information, your account information, and then of course your accounting date, which we're using up here in your parameters, the posting date, PO issue date. We're using this in the parameters for open POs only, invoice date, invoice number, your PO number, and then your variance that's associated with each one. If it's been paid, you're also going to be able to see that check date and check description, and then also your cost per square foot is coming in. Okay, so I'm going to go back. So that's kind of a high level of the information that we're pulling in. But what I'm going to do is I want to run this a little bit larger. I'm going to clear my filters or my parameters right here with this X. Fun fact, you can clear all your parameters. And I want to run it bigger when we start looking at the pivot tables because it's just a lot more fun when I have more data. Some people want more cowbell. I want more data. Just give me more. I'm going to come in, I'll go 2019. I'm going to bring all of my closings in from January 1st, 2019 to today for this particular project. So I'm going to go ahead and get data. So we'll see our lot number count increasing, and of course our total records are going to increase as well. Just let this run for a second and it'll pull it in. There we go. Total of 9 lots and just under 3,000 records. Okay, so we've gone through a lot of the details. And so what I want to do now is just jump into some of the pivot tables. I'm going to scroll over so you can see all of this information is coming over. This first pivot table, and again, I'm going to refresh it to pull my data in. Oops, before I do, there's something I want to point out. I knew there was a reason I scrolled over. And this is really important with this particular analyzer. So if I'm looking, for example, at my land cost, and I have 2 separate transaction items, and these 2 together are going to sum up to what's sitting on this summary line item. So these are the same as my summary level. Microsoft Excel doesn't understand that. Oh, well, no, that's a summary. All Microsoft Excel knows is, hey, this is all on the same column. So when you do get into your pivot tables, it's going to be really important that you filter by your line type. So we're going to come back over here to our cost code summary, which I've already refreshed, but make it a habit to always refresh it whenever you come in. And I need to refresh it by line type. Now I know my budget information is at my summary level, so I'm going to go ahead and refresh it by summary, but that will affect my job cost amount because that's at both levels, right? So looking at it by project and then by job and then by cost code. This next one is a cost by category. I'm going to refresh it again. And now I also need to make sure that I look at my filter by a specific job type. And now I can see by each one of my category codes, right, for this particular project and all the jobs that have closed, what my overall spend was. This next pivot table, and this is an awesome one, this is looking at my cost per square foot. So we're taking that square footage field that you saw in the analyzer, and we're taking the cost per square foot for each one. Now, again, if I am a construction manager, operations manager, I want to look at my direct cost, right? So these other things aren't going to come into play with my direct cost. So I'm probably going to filter it by category. And so now I'm just looking at my direct costs, and this is just taking the average, and then we have a formula outside of the pivot table to pull in to sum up my costs. And what's nice about this is we've put some, again, conditional formatting, standard Microsoft Excel formatting to just highlight some of the key areas, right? So this red column with the blue around it and the blue font, that's going to be the largest value in my data row. So I know that for my 6020B, my foundation has cost the most per square foot of anything else within here. So this is just, we have the smallest value in the row, the greater than average deviation. So this is just a great way to be able to do an analysis of your costs at a direct cost basis in this example by cost code and by plan. Because these have already closed, I know that these are going to be my actual costs. This next pivot table is a cost by job status. Again, I'm going to refresh it, and I am going to filter by a specific line type. I only brought in closed jobs, but if I was pulled in open or started information, you would see that in here as well. And this last one, I think, is crazy valuable for builders, and that's actually looking at those variances that came over with the cost codes, and those variances came over at the transaction level. So I want to make sure that I am filtering by transaction, again, line type, big bold red, and this is looking at your project and then your job, and then over here, these are your variances. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of my blanks. And I'm also going to get rid of this USC because I know just from my data, that is not like a true variance. That's where we're putting some other information. Okay, so I'm just gonna do a quick, just because I am crazy, I have to have my column width be consistent, and I'm going to wrap my text. So super simple to make it just look a little bit better. I have all my details in here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my pivot tables, and I don't want the job. I want the address, right? So I'll pull my address down here, and now I've changed it similar to how we did with the purchase orders, right? So I can see the grand total for each one of my jobs, how much we had in variances. But let's change it even more, right? So maybe I don't necessarily care about my project or my address. I just want to look at my variance costs. And I can see I had 90,000 in variances for those closings. And I want to do some sort of evaluation on that. I want to, see if I can see some trends. So, oops, I don't want to do that. I wanted to do this. So what I'm going to do is, first off, I want to see like when are most of my variances occurring. So I'm going to look for my accounting date. I'm just going to type date in there, and I'm going to take my accounting date and I'm going to drop it into my columns. Just say yes. Sometimes Microsoft Excel thinks it's smarter than we are. It probably is. As a matter of fact, I'm sure it is. Microsoft Excel, though, when you're pulling your dates into your pivot tables, they automatically start grouping your data. They assume that you want to group it by year, by quarter, by month, right? So I'm going to change this. I can group my field up here. If I get rid of my quarters, right, now I'm going to look at it by year and by month. But I want to normalize my data, right? I'm going to see, is there any month of the year where I'm having more issues than other months? So I'm going to simply get rid of my years, and now I can look at my spend month over month, right? But sometimes just looking at data this way, sometimes you want to see it visually. Sometimes you just need a visual. Now, if you were in Blaine's webinar, he did some pretty cool stuff. I'm not quite as cool as Blaine, but I can do a pivot chart or a chart off my pivot table because Microsoft Excel has made it so easy. They've made it so easy to do that. I'm just going to get boring and I'm going to grab a stacked column chart, and that's going to show me my data. But you know what? What's nice is I can actually kind of see what it looks like. And this is not how I want to see it. I actually want to see it. I want to see my my issues month over month. So I'm going to come in here before I do that, and I'm going to change this up, right? I'm going to go back to my field list. I'm going to change my accounting date with my variance, right? So I'm just going to make that change. I'm going to get rid of my blank months. There we go. I'm going to come back to my pivot chart. I'm going to do the exact same thing, and I'm going to grab my stacked. Just going to make it a little bit bigger for everyone to see it. Of course, you can always move this to another Excel worksheet and still control it with your pivot table. And I'm going to go into my analyze because now I have all these things that I can do with my chart. I'm going to get rid of these because I think that they look ugly. And so now I'm looking at it month over month, and I can see August by far has the most of my variances. And I can see that construction error is pretty high during the month of August. And I'm wondering now, like, is that consistent? So I can do one. I have another trick. I'm going to come into my pivot tables and I'm going to insert a timeline. Microsoft has added slicers and timelines, and what those do is they just give you additional filters on your data as opposed to just using your filters up here in your pivot table. So I'm going to grab my accounting date, which is the same date that I'm using right here for my variances, and I'm just going to slide it up. And I'm going to change the color so it matches, so it looks pretty. Now, what's nice is I'm looking at this by month. I've normalized my month across multiple years. Over here, I can see it by month and by year, right? So, but what's really nice about about your timelines is that I can change the way that I'm looking at the data, and it doesn't have to coincide with the way that my date is formalized in here. So I can go to years and I can be like, okay, so for 2018, let me actually slide this up a little bit so you can see it better. 2018, where did my issues occur? Well, guess what? August is still the biggest month, and my construction error is still the most. So 2018, 2019, I see I have more in July, but August by far is still where I'm having the highest value of my construction errors, right? So maybe it's just so close to vacation time, or they're just coming back, but who knows? But now you can actually plan for that and be able to, kind of get a visual for where you're having the most of your variances or when those variances are occurring. And if you wanted to even change this and be like, oh, I really want to look at it, with my years, that is not a problem, right? I come back into my months. I'm going to go my field groupings. I'll simply add years to it. Yes, I do. And then over here, you can see that now my chart has gone by year and by month. So I'm actually able to really be able to see some of those trends that I am having. So just a way to be able to use informXL, not only to look at specific data, use it as part of your day-to-day activities like we did with the purchase orders, to look up a PO, look at just your open purchase orders, look at your costs as compared to your budgets, and really be able to utilize Microsoft Excel to look at some of your trends, right? So I love data, and I'm super excited about informXL for BRIX, and I hopefully you guys will be equally as excited as well. So I think that's all I had, unless we have any questions.
Allison, this is Blaine. I have not seen any questions in the chat currently, but let's see if anything comes in.
Yeah. What do people, you could even put in the chat what you maybe think about informXL, especially if it's the first time you've seen it. It's really powerful. And I'm just going to go back to our list right here. So our informXL list, which is up here at the top. So quiet.
All right. Tyler, I wasn't sure if there were any questions that had popped up in the chat.
Yes, it looks like we have a couple. So one that came across, the analyzers have so many useful features, but my team is not very adept at using Excel. Do you provide training?
We absolutely do. So when you get informXL, we will schedule a training with you. And the really nice thing about informXL is you don't have to be an Excel expert to be able to use it. I think most of us can hit get data and refresh data. But when we come in and we do the training, we'll go over, where the fields are coming from, what they mean, and we'll do a lot with pivot tables to get your team comfortable with pivot tables. I mean, this is read only from BRIX, so you're not going to break anything. And the best way to go about it is by trying different things and seeing what's giving you the information that you're looking for. So you do not have to be an Excel expert by any means to be able to use informXL.
Another question that came across, is there a way to see option data, such as frequency, cost, etc.?
So we're bringing in the options that are associated with the purchase orders. We do not have any analyzers in the original offering that are currently looking at option information. but it's certainly something that could be considered, and probably Blaine is the best person to answer that. I don't know if it's come up for you before.
You know, we do get requests for other analyzers on a regular basis. So what we're deploying now is the in version 1 of informXL for BRIX is the list of the analyzers that we'd popped up early on in the slides, and an options analysis analyzer is not in that initial list. It could absolutely end up that we develop something as we get into the next release of informXL. What we like to do as we add builders and as additional users come online is we like to kind of get an idea for what other builders are looking for, and then we will, you know, over time continue to grow the product. It could very well be that an options analysis tool ends up making the kind of the short list, so to speak, for the next iteration, the next version of informXL for BRIX following this initial release.
Can we add an analyzer for attribute searches? This would allow us to find every job that has a specific product.
Yeah, so that would probably end up going right along the lines of the other request, right? So your option frequency and your attributes are going to be associated with the options that have been selected. So I would imagine that would be something that we would also include in that first question. So along with the options, including the attributes that were selected along with that option, so you will be able to do an evaluation of your attributes.
Yeah, so we'll note that there's already been a request in for options analysis, and we'll keep that on the short list, so to speak.
Is this web enabled?
It is. This is 100% Microsoft Excel. So I wouldn't say that it's web enabled. This is a hosted application. And so all of your BRIX data is hosted in the cloud. And what we're doing is we're connecting to that hosted BRIX data. So you don't have to have SQL Server databases. You don't have to have, you know, IT infrastructure, so to speak, in order to utilize informXL. But what you do need is Microsoft Office. You have to have Microsoft Office installed on your laptops or on your PCs. And you will also need a place in which you can store the files, right? So as long as you've got file folder or folder sharing within your organization, right? Then you should have what you need. So you need Office, and you need just a Windows network and file share environment, and that's it.
Is there a field option on transaction details that will display notes from EPOs written by field supervisors?
Yes, let me go ahead and open the PO analyzer back up. So we do have several note fields in here. Just open it up. So I'm going to expand this out. So here are the PO notes, and these are PO notes that came over from BuildPro. So those will come in, and you can wrap the text on there if the notes are very extensive. Also, any comments that were on the PO is inside here. And if I'm going to scroll on over all the way to the far right, there's a couple of other note fields. So here's one, again, at the POs, the note field, and I think that's it. Yep, so we have three note fields and the item description as well that all has a wrap text. So yes, there are note fields that are pulling in.
What is the most underrated report or tool that you think holds the most value?
Oh, Blaine, can I answer this one?
You go for it.
Job details, right? So we just looked at the job cost analyzer and the purchase order analyzer, and those are like, you know, they're bringing in a ton of data and they're kind of sexy looking, but then job details is just all the information that you want about your jobs, right? So it's going to contain, you know, like I believe we added some metrics in between, key dates in there. There's, you know, every bit of information you want about your job, and that's just good information to have, right? Whether it's open, whether it's closed, if it's sold, and all of the dates associated with it. And I think it's probably the most underrated because people are typically looking for cost, but as far as just straight information, job details, in my opinion.
How does informXL handle the reporting?
I'm not sure I understand that question. informXL is a reporting platform, essentially, right? So if the question is from a technical standpoint, what it's doing, Excel is connecting back to a report server, which is a replication of a real-time replication of your BRIX data. So that's how it's handling it technically. From a general reporting standpoint, just in terms of providing information to your users, basically what you saw with Allison in terms of getting the details and then summarizing with pivots, that's how you would actually, of course, present it to your users. You also have the ability, and I don't, maybe I wasn't paying attention, Allison, I'm not sure if you showed that you can click, there's a PDF button in any of the analyzers. And so any of the analyzers that you want to turn into kind of a straight PDF, more of a structured report, whether it's here on this main page, this details page, or on any of the pivot table pages, you can publish a PDF and then share that as a kind of a structured report in the event that you don't want to necessarily provide somebody with the Excel version of the output. You just want a PDF version of it. I hope I answered the question. I wasn't entirely clear on
when will we have access to the sandbox or the live field?
So February is our official launch, when all 7 analyzers in version 1.0 will be completely available. If you want to get in line for that, just hit us up. What we're suggesting, what we're asking is that you reach out to your Hyphen sales rep and let them know that you're interested in informXL, and we can get you on the kind of the early deployment list. And then at that point, you'll have, all we do is we publish the analyzers, make them available for you. Allison will provide a high-level overview training similar to what you saw today, but she'll go through the various analyzers, and then you're on your way at that point. The nice thing is with informXL, it's very easy to deploy across your organization, right? It's easy for us to get up and running, and it's easy for you to deploy. So it's not some large implementation. There's not a ton of planning that's required. It's just a matter of you saying, yes, I'm interested in working with informXL for my organization, and we get you going. Again, you'll want to reach out to your Hyphen sales rep to coordinate that.
Can you see what the most picked options or item codes are?
I think Allison had shown you in the purchase orders analyzer, you do have the ability to see your option codes and your products. The request, came in. I think there's another question is, can we have an options analysis analyzer? Was essentially the question, and the answer to that is we don't have one now, but we can certainly add that on a future enhancement list for consideration in the next release after we get this first release out there.
We got a question saying that somebody missed the first part of the webinar. This webinar recording will be sent out to each of you guys and will be available on our website, so don't worry, you will have access to this. Another question, how much do the analyzers cost? Can we buy some and not all of them?
So for pricing, you'll need to talk to your Hyphen rep, and they'll get you all the pricing. In terms of buying some or all, it's a package, right? So when you buy informXL for BRIX, you get all of the analyzers that are included in the package. It's not sold piecemeal.
Can we add an analyzer for attribute searches? This would allow us to find every job that has a specific product.
Yeah, so again, I think that comes back down into an options analysis analyzer, and again, we'll keep that on the short list for consideration in the next release. Right now, the only options will appear in the purchase orders analyzer, and that will show you any options that you have issued purchase orders for, but that's not necessarily going to show you everything that has been selected, so to speak. But again, we'll keep that in an options analysis analyzer in consideration for the next release.
Can I see who approved the purchase orders in the purchase order analyzer?
I believe that's in there, right, Allison?
Yeah, I'm just going to come back and I'm going to open these up. So we do have who it was requested by, and then who authorized it or declined it, and then whether or not it's been authorized or declined and the date.
If we use multiple instances of BRIX, can the analyzer handle it, possibly combining the information?
Ooh, the short answer to that is can we do that? Yes, that is a custom configuration and a custom installation that we would have to coordinate and work out directly with the builder that needs that. It does get kind of open up a different level of complexity, but the short answer is yes, it can be done.
And I got another question about the sales analyzer presentation that is available on the Hyphen website under our events. You can watch the recording through there. Did anybody else have any other questions? Go ahead and get that in now. We have a lot of great questions coming in.
And if you have any more questions coming in, I just wanted to mention that job details will be included in the next demo, which is currently scheduled for February 4th. So we will go over the most underrated analyzer of all of them in our next webinar, February 4th.
Allison, could you go ahead and pull up that slide that has the projected release dates for the different analyzers?
Sure. Let me go ahead and pull that up for you.
And Stephen, if you're on the phone still, can you please answer? We have a few questions from different people wondering how we can find out who their Hyphen sales reps are. Would you be willing to answer that question for them?
Yeah, they can email me specifically, scandy, S-C-A-N-D-Y, at i-hyphen.com. That's the letter I, hyphen, H-Y-P-H-E-N.com, or sales at i-hyphen.com. And we can get demos scheduled and pricing over to anyone that's asking those questions.
Perfect. I think we went ahead and answered everybody's questions. You guys can go ahead and see the release list on screen now. And if there isn't anything else, I think that's it.
Well, thank you so much, Tyler and Stephen, Allison as well, and for everybody who attended.
Great job, Allison. Thank you, Blaine, for your time. I
Everybody.
was really impressed with the amount of questions. That's maybe a record list of questions. That's good interaction. I really appreciate you guys having going through that today and having a great discussion on that, and look forward to our next webinar.
All right. Thanks,
Awesome.
everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good day.